Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Art for All group. This week, I thought I would talk about St George's Day, which was this weekend, just gone, the 23rd of April. And I thought I'd think a bit about the history of St George, things people might not know about him, and then also think about art related to him and art that maybe we could do. So I suppose St George is maybe an unusual saint because most saints are peaceable and ill-equipped to go into battle against dragons. That's what St George is meant to have done. And most saints would prefer to invoke the power of God to rehome the troublesome beast. But England's national patron saint, St George, was a soldier saint, and he was courageous and fearless. But George wasn't actually English. He probably came from Cappadocia in Turkey. And he's the patron saint of many other countries, including Georgia, which is named after him, and his legend recurs very widely. In English tradition, his fight is said to have taken place at Dragon Hill, a low chalk tump lying just below the Aftington White Horse that you can see here in what's now South Oxfordshire. The dragon expected to eat the king's daughter as he had devoured so many other noble girls, but George rode boldly against him and slew him with his shining sword. On Dragon Hill today, you can see white spots of chalk through the turf, marking where the dragon's poisonous blood spilled out, searing the grass. And this is the image of the famous white horse at Aftington. It's the oldest chalk hill-cut figure in Britain, perhaps over 3,000 years old. And nearby Dragon Hill is a natural mound about 10 metres high. It's named for its association with the legend of St George. So St George, an unusual saint. There was definitely a figure of St George, and he was a martyr, but he wasn't a knight. He was probably an officer in the Roman army, and it's believed that during the persecutions of the Emperor Diocletian in the early 4th century, St George was executed for refusing to make a sacrifice in honour of the pagan gods, but he never actually visited England. And he became popular with English kings because of his courageousness and being a warrior. And the St George cross was not used to represent England until the reign of Henry VIII. And the dragon was actually added later to his story. And images of the dragon and St George survived from the 9th century, about 500 years after his death. Originally, these may simply have been representations of the battle between good and evil. The story was developed and popularised in the Middle Ages in a compendium of stories about saints' lives, the Golden Legend. And St George was a saint for 1,000 years before the holiday, the celebration of St George's Day. And people used to turn to St George for protection. So people in the Middle Ages believed that St George was one of the 14 holy helpers, a group of saints who could help during epidemic diseases, so maybe quite useful to have around now. St George's protection was invoked against several nasty diseases, including the plague and leprosy. And St George, we also have the St George Cross, is named after the King, King George VI, and it's awarded for acts of the greatest heroism or courage in circumstances of extreme danger. And the image of St George also adorns many of the memorials built to honour those killed during World War I. So we have a warrior, and then we have a dragon, and it's the dragon that I want to talk about. So dragons feature in legend and folklore all across Britain, as well as Europe and Asia. They take many different forms and have varying characteristics. They can be a mild nuisance or a deadly peril. They may fly and breathe fire or creep along spouting poison. Various theories have been put forward to explain the popularity of the dragon legend. Recently, it's been suggested that the rainbow might have inspired tales of giant serpents. The rainbow serpent is indeed a creator god in some Aboriginal Australian mythologies. When a rainbow appears in the sky, it's said that the serpent is moving between water holes. Its capacity to find water is crucial to human survival in traditional societies, a function that connects it to the East Asian dragons. So East Asian dragons are associated with lakes and rivers, and they also hold fiery pearls in their mouths rather than breathe fire, so dragons live under the water. And there's also in Southern America and in Aztec culture the idea of Quetzalcoatl, who was the feathered serpent who flew through the air. Here we can see Australian Aboriginal art Namaroto spirits and the rainbow serpent Bolong. So the serpent flies through the sky and meets the spirits. So serpents are universally seen in the world's major mythological cycles as having particular wisdom about the secrets that lie beneath the Earth's surface. They can vanish into dark holes and reappear elsewhere, wriggling through the smallest chinks and crevices. Their habit of shedding their skins can signify the new knowledge they've acquired in the mysterious depths underground. And here are some East Asian dragons, so one disappearing into the mist, the others being ridden by gods. And in China, dragons were symbols of the emperor and symbols of status, and only the emperor could be shown, could wear clothing depicting the five-toed dragon. And dragons showed what kind of status you had within the imperial court. And this is Beowulf coming back to Europe, battling his nemesis, the dragon. And the dragon shown here would be a fire drake, something that could fly through the sky and breathe flames. But there are also dragons that crept along and spread poison, and they might be, if they were winged, they might be referred to as wyverns or worms with a Y instead of an O. And here we have a very famous image of St. George again by Carpaccio, and it's a fresco on the wall of a church in Venice. And here St. George is slaying the dragon in a joust. And this is a sort of low creeping dragon rather than a fire-breathing dragon. And he's poisoned the land, he's ripped to pieces all the people surrounding him. It's quite grisly, really. I wouldn't advise looking too closely. And you can see the princess on the other side. And you can very much see this as a retelling of the myth of Perseus rescuing the princess from the sea monster, that he has to fly on the winged horse Pegasus. This is a very similar scene. And finally, maybe the most quite surreal but also really famous depiction of St. George and the Dragon. This is by Uccello. It's also from the Italian Renaissance. And we have this kind of very surreal dragon. He only has two legs, and Uccello is really playing with perspective and trying to show us these the depth of the dragon coming out of his cave and being triangular, all the mathematics of this. And again, the dragon is being vanquished by St. George, and whirling clouds and a princess, and there's lots of action, not much movement, but again, a very, very different dragon. And I think what I wanted at the end of today is maybe to think about what dragon you would create. Is a dragon evil, or is it maybe some of the shadowy facets of ourselves that we don't always want to look at? Is it a force for good? Is it bringing water? Is it bringing secrets to light? Is it able to fly through the air? And think about how you would depict your own dragon, what materials you would use. Would the dragon be like you, or would it be not like you? And I'd love to see any dragons that you do create. So thank you very much for joining me today. And I hope that creating your own dragons is rewarding and interesting. All the very best. Goodbye.